I suggest that we take 2 or 3 minutes to answer a few questions. So Yella has already answered on the chat box on the question for him, and unfortunately he had to leave a bit earlier. But for Pawel, you have a few questions for you. I suggest we go with the first one. Should we use wearables and even electroencephalograms to track sleep patterns and environments through the night? So you mentioned the sleep capsules, but do you want to say a word on this?
Right. I mean, that's correct. The wearable sleep trackers, very briefly, they are basically motion sleep trackers, and they measure a pulse rate. So they use a special protocol to determine the sleep stages through the sleep, through the pulse and movement. And also they determine the length of sleep and awakenings and the sleep onset latency or sleep efficiency through our emotions. So that is very well described. The other part is probably less described, so it would be very useful to have additional measurements. What we are doing now is we are working on a paper trying to summarize, so compare the wearables with the polysomnograph. And we will start additional measurements on that aspect later this year in our labs. To be honest, in order to better characterize the effects, we would really probably need a much better measurement. But remember, wearing the very sophisticated medical instrumentation for measuring of sleep quality is also disturbing our sleep. So, you know, we need to find some sort of a compromise here.
Okay.
The emission rates of CO2, TR 14788. I don't think I know that standard. I'm maybe know many standards, but not that one particularly. But I can relate to that. We published a paper on CO2 emission rates. It's published in Indoor Journal, and then no, maybe not Indoor Journal, maybe the other one. But anyway, this is a paper. I can actually share this paper. This is an open access paper. Anyone can. The main author is Fan with me, and then CO2 emission rates. We are working on the CO2 emission rate paper with our Chinese partner, Professor Li Lan, for elderly, and then there will be soon paper published on the emission rates from children, which is already accepted in another journal. So there is a lot of information there, and we have completed some campaigns for where we measured CO2 from sleeping people, so we can actually do that also to see whether this is, you know, across different studies, this is true.
Okay, thank you.
For windows opening in how to say, in hotels. I mean, hotels. I mean, I'm saying if you don't have a mechanical ventilation, any type, either the extract or balanced mechanical ventilation and so on, you should make sure that you have access to the outdoor unpolluted air. So basically, I don't think there is a need that hotels will have window opening unless we really prefer to sleep with the window open because we like that. But with respect to ventilation, actually that can be delivered with the mechanical ventilation. So the hotels should probably make sure that they provide sufficient ventilation in the spaces. Yes, they used usually air conditioner. Basically, it is the split systems in which they basically recirculate the air. And then, of course, that is an issue here. Remember that many of those systems are extremely noisy. I mean, extremely noisy, meaning that a little bit of a noise disturbance will disturb our sleep.
Okay, I'm afraid we are a little bit out
number
of
4
time.
is correct.
So...
It is below that level for the entire night.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So this is, we are working on it. We don't know whether it should be 800 or 1200. On whether we actually propose 2 levels, we don't know that. Threshold, yes. Yes, exactly. We know that 700, 800 ppm has been observed in other studies as well. I would really like to see this also. Yeah, I know this is a Dutch study. I'm not sure whether it has been published ever in the peer-reviewed journal. If you can share this study with us, we would be very happy. I want to tell you one story at the very end. So sorry, very quickly. So the famous Pettenkofer, who developed 1000 ppm CO2 as a marker of good air quality, he actually developed 2 markers of good air quality. One marker for general spaces where we are awake, and one marker for the general spaces or the other spaces where we are asleep. And for bedrooms, he recommended 700 ppm. So basically, we are back to the what has been already recommended for 200 years ago. Chandra, sorry, I stopped. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pawel. And I think you know, Nolwenn, the questions, there are quite a few questions that are probably not going to be possible to be answered here, which I think, as we discussed earlier, we will, as a panel, address all the questions in some form or the other and make it available through the AIVC platform. As I believe that when the recordings are going to be made available, we'll ensure that the responses are also made from all the panel speakers. I just wanted to respond to an earlier point that Professor Derek Crooms made, and I think, Pawel, you already answered the question about the hotel situation. In most of the hotels in this part of the world, and I'm even probably thinking some of the big cities, the high-end hotels, let's say, they don't quite go for the split system type air conditioning. They have what we call a dedicated outdoor air system type. That means it just provides ventilation to the hotel room, and the additional cooling or heating is obtained by room-based units, and that could be a radiant cooling, radiant heating, or an additional fan coil unit, as we say in the tropics. So the hotel sleeping environment is very interesting. There are issues in some situations, but a good number of them do have dedicated mechanically ventilated system design. Just want to provide that input.
Yeah, and I want to add that I mean, we should not immediately disqualify the possibility of opening the windows, because there may be a very important psychological effect here that may affect our sleep quality. So some people like to sleep with the windows open, some don't like to sleep with windows open. So I think it's all about, you know, making the personalized and individually controlled environments, and that could be an important aspect. This is a research that we will be looking at 2 aspects. One is looking at the air cleaner effects, because applying air cleaners in these areas where we cannot ventilate, and the second one is to compare the effect, you know, of the ventilation obtained by opening the window and ventilation that is obtained by mechanical means.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar, and thank you to all the speakers today. I think it's time to close this session. So thank you again, and have a good day or evening wherever you are in the world.
Yeah, and you are welcome to connect us, you know, us by email and so on, if you have further questions, requests, and so on. Thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks Chandra, Lilan, and Yela, and of course you, Nolwenn, for organizing that on behalf of AIVC. Thanks to AIVC.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.